Article 8. Whether sacred doctrine is a matter of argument. We proceed thus to the 8th article. It seems this doctrine is not a matter of argument. Objection 1. From Ambrose, says De Fide 1, put arguments aside where faith is sought. But in this doctrine, faith especially is sought. But these things are written that you may believe. John chapter 20, verse 31. Therefore, sacred doctrine is not a matter of argument. Objection 2. Further, if it is a matter of argument, the argument is either from authority or from reason. If it is from authority, it seems unbefitting its dignity. For the proof from authority is the weakest form of proof, according to Boethius. But if from reason, this is unbefitting its end, because according to Gregory, homily 26, faith has no merit in those things of which human reason brings its own experience. Therefore, sacred doctrine is not a matter of argument. On the contrary, the scripture says that a bishop should embrace that faithful word which is according to doctrine, that he may be able to exhort in sound doctrine and to convince the naysayers. Titus chapter 1, verse 9. I answer this. As other sciences do not argue in proof of their principles, but argue from their principles to demonstrate other truths in these sciences, so this doctrine does not argue in proof of its principles, which are the articles of faith, but from them it goes on to prove something else, as the apostle from the resurrection of Christ argues in proof of the general resurrection. 1 Corinthians 15. However, it is to be borne in mind in regard to the philosophical sciences that the inferior sciences neither prove their principles nor dispute with those who deny them, but leave this to a higher science. But the highest of them, namely metaphysics, can dispute with one who denies its principles only if the opponent will make some concession. But if he concede nothing, it can have no dispute with him, though it can answer his objections. Hence, sacred scripture, since it has no science above itself, can dispute with one who denies its principles only if the opponent admits some at least of the truths obtained through divine revelation. Thus we can argue with heretics from texts in Holy Writ, and against those who deny one article of faith we can argue from another. But if your opponent believes nothing of divine revelation, there is no longer any means of proving the articles of faith by reasoning, but only of answering his objections, if he has any, against faith. Since faith rests upon infallible truth, and since the contrary of a truth can never be demonstrated, it is clear that proofs brought against faith cannot be demonstrations, but are arguments that can be answered. Reply to Objection 1. Although arguments from human reason cannot avail to prove what must be received on faith, nevertheless, this doctrine argues from articles of faith to other truths. Reply to Objection 2. To argue from authority is most proper to this doctrine, since its principles are obtained by revelation, and thus we must believe the authority of those to whom the revelation has been made. Nor does this take away from the dignity of this doctrine. For although the argument from authority based on human reason is the weakest, yet the argument from authority based on divine revelation is the strongest. But sacred doctrine makes use even of human reason, not indeed to prove faith, for thereby the merit of faith would come to an end, but to make clear the other things that are put forward in this doctrine. Since therefore grace does not destroy nature, but perfects it, natural reason should minister to faith, as the natural bent of the will ministers to charity. And so the apostle says, bringing into captivity every understanding unto the obedience of Christ. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. Hence sacred doctrine makes use also of the authority of philosophers in those questions in which they were able to know the truth by natural reason, as Paul quotes a saying from Aratus, as some also of your own poets said, for we are also his offspring. Acts chapter 17, verse 28. Nevertheless, sacred doctrine makes use of these authorities as extringent and probable arguments, but it properly uses the authority of the canonical scriptures as a necessary argument, and the authority of the doctors of the Church as one that may properly be used, though merely as probable. For our faith rests upon the revelation made to the apostles and prophets, who wrote the canonical books, and not on the revelations, if any such there were, made to other doctors. Hence Augustine says, Epistle ad Heron, only those books of Scripture which are called canonical have I learnt to hold in such honor as to believe their authors have not erred in any way in writing them. But other authors I so read as not to deem anything in their works to be true, merely on account of their having so thought and written, whatever may have been their holiness and learning. Whatever may have been their holiness and